Weekly intake cycling for maximal results. This was one of the biggest aha moments I had in terms of learning about nutrition to help not only myself realize my body composition goals, but also to clients. So intake cycling basically entails that you do not have to eat the same thing or the same amount every day in order to achieve results. So what most people do is they have no idea what their intake looks like. And so the green line there is what would be your maintenance calories. And so in graph number 1, and I apologize in advance for my drawing skills, graph number 1, you're going to see someone who doesn't really monitor what they're intaking, and they have some days where they're over maintenance and some days where they're a little bit less, but the average is over. And ultimately what will happen is slowly over time, weight gain. The other scenario is what people often think they should do in order to achieve their goals. So they have this number set out, that deficit that they want to reach or achieve, and they think that they should eat that way all of the time. And they restrict themselves to a point where they're eating that way, they're achieving their goals, but ultimately what happens is life, and it becomes unsustainable. It could be trips, vacation, holidays, going out with coworkers, going out with friends, whatever it might be, where you want to relax and let loose a little bit, and then ultimately one of these days gets spiked upwards, and then it's, oh well, you know what, I screwed up yesterday, I'm going to screw up the next day, and I'm off my game plan, and I fell off the wagon, and I'm not going to get back on it because it ultimately is just too restrictive. And then the third option is kind of that scenario, what people think they should do. So they try really hard in the first few days. Monday under that deficit, Tuesday under that deficit, Wednesday under that deficit, Thursday they might go a little bit over, but they're trying really, really hard and they're staying really, really strict. And then Friday comes and they have some sort of social event and boom, the spike goes up and they completely lose sight of their game plan and fall off the wagon, so to speak. Saturday comes, same thing. Sunday, well, I had a bad Friday, and Saturday might as well add that icing on the cake on Sunday, and then they get back to Monday, and then they might either reset their game plan and get back on the wagon, or they might just forget about their game plan completely. And so with the fourth scenario, again, it's one that's worked well for me. It's one that's worked really well for clients, where you have an idea, you're monitoring your intake somehow, some way. It could be a food journal, could be a biweekly adherence chart, could be tracking your calories, whatever it might be. But you have an idea of your intake, and from there, you understand that with each week, you want to have days where you're a little more strict, a little more less about your intake, and eating foods that might be a little bit more nutrient dense. And then you have days where you can let loose a little bit and have foods that you love to enjoy. Things for me are pizza and chicken wings, maybe a glass of wine, a martini. But if you're a dessert person, then that's totally fine. And with that, you monitor your intake based around the understanding that in order to achieve your goals, and this can be for maintaining weight, this can be for losing weight, which is what these graphs would represent, or this could be also too for gaining weight slowly and sustainably, but you monitor your intake in somehow, some way, and ultimately you can cycle your intake based around different things that are happening in your week, or also too within your month. And you know that you have a couple days that you can look forward to, whatever event it might be. Maybe it's a birthday where you're gonna cycle your intake around that day in order to not derail any of your progress, or in order to maintain or sustain some of your progress. So you'll have a couple days where you really adhere to the game plan, and your intake is a little bit less, and then so that when you enjoy things on said birthday or social event or vacation or whatever it might be, you get back on track that next week and you don't fall into this yo-yo pattern. You understand and you know all too well that you can adjust and manipulate your intake in order to be a little bit more flexible while still attaining your goals. And this can also work really, really well in a month like December, where we have the holidays coming up and you want to be a little more adherent and kind of plan for some of the things that you're going to enjoy in and around the holidays. And so you'll cycle your intake that way. So with that said, weekly intake cycling can also be throughout the month. It doesn't have to be specific weeks, but having an idea of what you're intaking and what your goals are for your intake, and then just being a little bit more flexible around those days where you want to enjoy some treats and some indulgences, and then being a little more adherent coherent on days where you want to make room for those treats and indulgences, so to speak. So this is a really, really great tool, really great tip. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to post them below.